Hello, my name is Mike McCoy. I work for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in the Huntington District. I was a park ranger at Summersville Lake for over 10 years, operating the dam at Summersville Lake and the recreation areas. I am currently working out of the Huntington District office as the park ranger for the lock and dams on the Ohio and Kanawha River for 400 miles of river.
What was your job at Summersville Lake?
My main purpose when I had my job at Summersville Lake was to operate the dam and control the water flow in and out of the lake area to downstream.
When you say control the water flow in and out of Summersville Lake, what do you mean by that, and how does it work?
On one side of the dam, we pull up water from an 800 square mile drainage area, and we hold that water during rainfall or even drought conditions for different purposes. And so on one side of the dam there's an intake structure. The water that enters that structure passes through a 29-foot tunnel to our outlet structure, and at that end we can control the water flow and release with 3 Halbunger valves. Those 3 Halbunger valves will release about 5,000 cubic feet of water per second, and so we operate those at different percentages, and we regulate that from how much water we have flowing in and rainfall falling. We do all this from calculating from rain gauges to river gauges to tell us how much water we have coming into the lake, and so we try to hold the water at a steady level, and so we calculate that and release water at the same rate downstream.
How important actually is the dam to the economy?
Well, Summersville Dam is really important because it controls 800 square miles of drainage area above the dam. So all the water that flows off into the drainage area of Summersville Lake, we hold and pull the water and regulate for below dam. And so during a high water event with a lot of rainfall, 2+ inches of rain or more, we control the release downstream to protect cities like Charleston, Huntington, and all the way down the Gauley River, into the Kanawha River, and then Ohio, and then in Mississippi. Those dams are very, very important. Without those dams there would be a lot more flooding. Over the course of time since Summersville Dam has come in operation, since 1966, we have saved over $900 million in flood damage reduction.
Do you know how the idea of the dam came about and why it was constructed in the first place?
It was passed by Congress in 1938, a Flood Control Act, and signed in law by President Franklin Roosevelt. And with this act, it gives us authority, congressional money to build these dams.
You had mentioned that there have been 2 major floods since the construction of Summersville Dam. Would you care to elaborate on those floods?
The first flood of Summersville Lake happened in 1966 during the construction. During the end of the construction, they had a diversion tunnel that diverted the river around the intake structures while they was completing the intake structure work. Well, during that time, it rained over 6.5 inches of rain, and they had the river completely shut off. And so they had a small amount of flow allowed to come out of the dam. It rained 6.5 inches on one night and 3.5 inches on the next day. During that time, the lake went up over 140 feet in elevation and run across what our emergency spillway. At the dam sites, the dam is built at about 15 feet higher than in a place that allows the water to pass through an area without topping the dam. So during that time, it actually come across the road at Route 129 that goes down through the dam and come across the road about 2-3 feet deep and then pass through the emergency spillway. And then as we kept letting water out, the water passed back down, and then we just keep releasing water until we bring it back down to a summer regulated pool. And then in 2016 was our second highest pool. We received 7.5 inches of rain, and even under our release guidelines, we're regulated for downstream controls to only allow so much release to protect areas like Charleston, because there's multiple dams that feed into the Kanawha River. You have Bluestone Dam and Summersville Dam that feed the Kanawha River. So we worked between the two. We was releasing our maximum of 18,000 cubic feet a second. The lake was on a 6-foot per hour climb. And after 24 hours, we reached our second highest pool, which was still 14 feet from topping Route 129, the emergency spillway. So even at that flood compared to 1966, the rainfall was near equivalent. The only difference was we had the ability just to release water at a regulated rate, which kept the water from topping the spillway.
the flood that happened in 2016, how did that flood impact you personally? And how did you deal with the stress on trying to keep the water at bay and also trying to keep the public calm as well?
Well, during any kind of flood event, it's a very busy day at the lake, and with a flood at this magnitude turned into a busy month at the lake. As we was coming over at 24-hour period, we were on 24-hour surveillance of the dam. And so as the water climbs to these record pools, there's a staff of 8 to 10 people there at the lake. And so we all have to stay there. We stay there 24 hours a day monitoring the inflow of water. And so once we get the maximum outflow, it's a little more easier for us. But once we still have to monitor all the water coming in. During that flood of 2016, we flooded all of our recreation areas. We flooded all over top of all of our restrooms, playgrounds, beaches, picnic areas. It was pretty magnitude for Summersville and the surrounding area. You get all the visitation, everybody wanting to come out and see the flood and see how high the water gets. So our public safety is our top concern then. So we have to shut down areas and kind of direct people, but it's still a public facility and we still allow people come out and enjoy that and get pictures and remember the time of the 2016 flood. We worked long hours. During that flood, we had an evacuated campground that holds 110 campsites. It was completely full that weekend. So we started at about 3 o'clock that afternoon and started evacuating campers. We got all the campers out about 8 o'clock that evening. And the lake had climbed over 30 feet in that time frame. And so it is a very stressful time. You get long hours. Then once all the water goes back down, you have all this cleanup. The lake was completely covered. We had almost 10 acres of drift of trash that we had to contain to an area. And we spent the next 2 months cleaning that up, bringing it to an area that we could later burn it and haul off the trash that following winter when we draw the lake down. We have to repair all the restrooms, campsite areas. There's a lot to deal with after the flood. And the history of that dam turned 50 years old that year. So not only a month and a half after the flood, we had our 50th anniversary. So we got all the lake cleaned up, all the recreation areas opened back up, and then had this 50th anniversary that brought over 10,000 people to the lake for a weekend.
Is there any other activities like that go on throughout the year at Summersville Lake?
Yeah, there's a lot of activities that go on. We get almost 1 million visitors a year, and our primary purpose at the lake is flood reduction. And so that's our main purpose there. Our second main purpose is recreation. So we have campgrounds, we have special events going on all the time. We have sailboat races, we have triathlons, we have a beach that's open from Memorial Day to Labor Day. We have 4 launch ramps, and we get an average of about 500 boats on the lake a day on a busy weekend. It's the largest lake in the state of West Virginia, so it draws a lot of people almost centrally located in the state. And so it's easy access off of interstate and a 4-lane highway. And so there's just a lot of things that happen, a lot of sightseeing. We got rock climbing that brings a lot of people a year to climb over top of water, to climb off of 125 routes that we have. We have almost 25 miles of trails, and so there's a lot to do at the lake.
In your opinion, would any of that stuff be possible if we didn't have Summersville Dam? Like, what if those floods had happened and Summersville Dam had not been there?
Well, we have inundation maps that show our primary purpose when we built the dam had flood reduction. We have to show inundation maps. So what would happen if Summersville Dam wasn't there? Those maps was all updated after the 1966 flood. So in 2016, everybody's more familiar with, if our dam wouldn't have been there, there would have been over 2 feet of water on the Canal Boulevard in Charleston. And so the flood impacts would be tremendous for the economy to rebound from something like that. It would be in the millions of dollars. That year alone, we saved over $185 million in flood reduction. It would have been tremendous amounts of damages down through the Charleston-Huntington region. So those dams not being there, you would be a continuing flooding problem in cities like Charleston. The other things when how important the dam is there, it includes and gets all the recreation and all the activities that follow with that. You have a good fisheries that you can come out. You come out for recreating boat riding. You have all your trails and your camping, and so it's an economical impact to the local economy that draws, where we draw 1 million people a year. There's a lot of spending that goes on in and around the lake. It supports probably over 100 businesses that's within a 50-mile radius of Summersville, some way, shape, or someone shape or another.
So, aside from preventing major flood damage in West Virginia, do you know any other interesting facts about Summersville Dam?
Yeah, Summersville is a unique project. Most people, when they think of a dam, they think of this huge concrete structure. And Summersville Dam is a little different on its own. It's a completely earthen dam, meaning it's made out of all dirt, and the center of it is a clay impervious core. And so all the material was brought from right there at the location of the dam. It was all dug up. They found the clay, and they built the clay core center. They kept filling it out with different types of clay till they get clean to the outside, and then they cover it with rock. The dam is 40 stories tall. It's almost 2,000 feet long. And it has almost a 2,500-foot tunnel that goes from lakeside to the riverside, and so which is really unique because we have to inspect that tunnel every few years, and so we get to walk back through the tunnel that's completely underground, and most people don't know how the water gets from one side to the other. They just see the water on one side and they see the river on the other. It supplies also in the fall. We have a hydroelectric plant on the dam. That's a private industry. That when we're releasing waters that we draw our lake down 77 feet in the winter for flood reduction, and it's used for a control source. And so we have this big control area of 800 square miles that we take water from the snowfall that we get in the mountains upstream of Summersville Dam. So we lower our lake 77 feet to take and count for that. Then every spring we fill it back up April 1st. In the fall, when we let it out, we let the water out on a slower release, and it's the second best river in the United States to whitewater raft. So we attract almost 300,000 people from every state and several different countries to come every year to raft down the Gauley River.
Being from Summersville, I bet you're really thankful that the dam was constructed, so you do have Summersville Lake to go out and enjoy with your family and friends.
Yeah, so I grew up in Summersville, and so I was always around the dam, and I used the lake then to fish and trail hike and to hunt around the area. And then later down the road, I ended up going to work for the Corps of Engineers. It supplies all kinds of fun things to do to bring families out. And the Corps and our recreation areas are really all family oriented. We have big campgrounds at a low cost rate. We have beach and day use areas, and we try to supply something for every need of the public, whether it's rock climbing or it's hiking or it's bike riding or it's fishing or it's just shoreline swimming or going to the beach or it's going camping. If there's something outdoors you can do it at Summersville Lake.
So if you're looking for a great outdoor experience, come to Summersville Lake and enjoy all the hiking, boating, fishing, camping, and rock climbing that the lake has to offer. But when you're there having a great time and enjoying all the beautiful scenery, remember that none of that would be possible without Summersville Dam.